Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into the world of web scraping, and we're tailoring this specifically for complete beginners. Look, if you've been hearing about data extraction or Python or scraping and felt, completely overwhelmed by it all, please don't worry. We're going to figure this out step by step together. We're looking at a truly amazing tool called BeautifulSoup, and by the end of our time today, you're going to understand exactly how it works. So let me just ask you a question. Have you ever wanted to collect useful information from a web page automatically instead of, copying it by hand? Because we have literally all been there. You find a list of products, maybe a directory of contacts, or pages of research data, and you just spend hours highlighting, copying, and pasting into a spreadsheet. It's tedious, it's super prone to errors, and frankly, it is not a great use of your valuable time. This is exactly where automation steps in as the ultimate solution. And that brings us to the absolute star of this explainer, BeautifulSoup. It is a Python library specifically designed for parsing HTML and XML documents and extracting the useful information right out of them. In simple terms, it takes the messy, intimidating code that builds a web page, which is basically just digital spaghetti, and turns it into a neatly structured format that your Python code can actually read. It does the heavy lifting, so you don't have to. Here is our roadmap for today. 1. Meet your parsing guide. 2. Setting up the tools. 3. Finding your HTML elements. 4. Using CSS selectors. 5. Building your first scraper. And finally, 6. Rules for responsible scraping. All right, Section 1, Meet your parsing guide. Understanding the basics of HTML parsing. Let's get into it. I want you to think of an HTML page as a massive, heavily organized document. If you just look at the raw HTML, it looks like a giant, terrifying wall of text and brackets. But BeautifulSoup, it acts like a super friendly guide inside that document. You basically just ask it, hey, can you show me where the headings are? Or can you grab all the links for me? And it points right to them. You absolutely do not have to understand every single line of code to get what you want. To put this in perspective, here is the core workflow of web scraping in 5 really simple steps. Step 1, you start with the web page. 2, you look at its underlying HTML. 3, you pass that code into a parser, which, spoiler alert, is exactly where BeautifulSoup sits. 4, you search for specific elements. And 5, you extract that clean data. BeautifulSoup handles step 3 perfectly, making steps 4 and 5 an absolute breeze. Moving right along to Section 2, setting up the tools, getting requests, and BeautifulSoup ready. So here's an absolutely crucial point. BeautifulSoup doesn't actually download web pages for you. It only parses the code you give to it. To actually get that code from the internet in the first place, you need a companion tool, and the most popular one is simply called Requests. Getting both of these onto your computer is as easy as opening your terminal or command prompt and typing python-m pip install BeautifulSoup for requests. You just hit enter, and Python's package manager handles the whole shebang. Let's break down exactly how these two tools work together in your actual code. First up, you use requests.get to visit the URL and grab the web page. Next, you look at response.txt, which holds all that raw, messy HTML code we were just talking about. Then you hand that raw code over by calling BeautifulSoup, which parses that HTML into a beautifully structured format. Once that is done, doing something like soup.title instantly accesses the page title. It's basically a perfect relay race between requests and BeautifulSoup. Section 3. Finding your HTML elements. Navigating the document tree. Okay, let's dive into the 2 most common ways you're actually going to search for data. On the left, we have find. If you say find H1, BeautifulSoup scans the page and returns only the very first H1 or heading element it sees. It's awesome when you know there's only one main title. On the right, though, we have find all. If you use find all A, and A stands for anchor, meaning a link in HTML, BeautifulSoup gathers every single link on the entire page and hands them back to you as a list. So one gives you a single specific item, the other gives you the whole collection. Finding the element is really only half the battle, right? Once you find it, you actually want the data inside it. If you want the readable text without all those messy HTML tags, you use .getTextStrip equals true. Now that strip equals true part, total pro tip, it cleans up any annoying extra spaces. If you're looking for an attribute instead, like the actual URL destination of a link, you'd use .getAhref. And remember our helpful guide analogy? BeautifulSoup also lets you navigate relationships. If you find a specific paragraph, you can easily ask it to look at its parent container, its children elements, or even its siblings sitting right next to it. Section 4. Using CSS selectors. Precision targeting. Sometimes simple HTML tags, like heading or paragraph, just aren't specific enough for what we need. Websites use IDs and classes to style their pages, and the cool thing is, we can hijack those for scraping. On the left, Select 1 uses a hashtag to locate a highly specific, totally unique element by its ID. On the right, Select uses a simple dot to locate all elements that share the product class. This is unbelievably powerful when you want to extract, say, a list of items from an e-commerce store or a newsfeed. Section 5. Building your first scraper, putting it all together. This is where it gets really fun. Just look at how beautifully simple this is. This right here is a complete mini project. First, we feed our HTML into BeautifulSoup, creating our parsed soup. Next, we use our precision CSS selector, soup.selectH2.title, to find every heading 2 that has the class title. Finally, we write a simple for loop. For every title we found, we print out the clean, readable text using getTextStrip=true. In literally just 4 lines of code, you've built a program that can extract every single article title from a complex web page. How cool is that? Putting it all together, here is exactly how our workflow translates to a real-world project. You request the web page, receive the raw HTML, parse it into soup, find your target elements, extract the clean text, and finally, save those results to a CSV or a database. Look at that. You are now officially automating data collection. Section 6. Rules for responsible scraping. Real-world uses and limitations. Now, it's absolutely crucial to know when to actually use BeautifulSoup. It is fantastic for scraping static product information, compiling research data, and automating repetitive tasks. But it definitely has limitations. It is purely an HTML parser. It's not a browser automator. This means if a website relies heavily on dynamic JavaScript to load its content, meaning, the text doesn't even show up until you scroll down or click buttons, BeautifulSoup might really struggle to see it because it only reads the initial HTML response. For those kinds of sites, you might need to level up to actual browser automation tools later on. And before you unleash your awesome new scraping skills on the internet, we have to talk about playing by the rules. Always respect a website's terms of service and check their robots.txt file, which literally tells you what pages you are allowed to scrape. Do not scrape too quickly. If you send 1,000 requests a second, you might crash their server, or just get your own IP address banned. Add deliberate pauses to your code. Also, make sure you defensively code your scrapers. Remember to check if an element actually exists before trying to extract text from it, or your program's going to crash. And just remember, every website is built a little differently, so you'll always have to adapt your CSS selectors to match their unique HTML structure. Wow. We have covered an incredible amount of ground in this explainer. You've seen how BeautifulSoup acts as your helpful little guide, navigating messy HTML and extracting exactly what you need with just a few lines of Python. So I'm going to leave you with this. Now that you actually have the power to parse and extract almost anything on the web, what structured data are you going to collect for your next big idea? Think about it, start coding, and happy scraping.